Set in 19th century England, young Catherine Earnshaw grows up at Wuthering Heights, where her father brings home an orphaned boy for her to look after. She names him Heathcliff, borrowing the name from her deceased brother. The two children form an intense, unbreakable bond, much to the disapproval of their housekeeper, Nellie Dean, who watches their closeness with unease. As the years pass, the Earnshaw estate begins to fall apart under Mr. Earnshaw's drinking and gambling. Catherine and Heathcliff share a fleeting but passionate moment, yet Catherine pulls away, painfully aware of Heathcliff's low social status. When Catherine discovers that their new neighbor, Edgar Linton, has arrived and is wealthy and well-connected, she decides to pursue him. Heathcliff becomes consumed by jealousy, lashing out as Catherine openly flirts with Edgar. Edgar then eventually proposes, and Catherine accepts, though she breaks down while confessing to Nellie that she still loves Heathcliff. Heathcliff overhears only the part where she belittles him, and devastated by this, he disappears from Wuthering Heights. Catherine tries to retract her acceptance of Edgar's proposal, but when she learns that Heathcliff is gone, she is completely heartbroken. After waiting a year for his return, she finally marries Edgar, believing that Heathcliff is gone for good. So, Catherine settles into life at Thrushcross Grange, embracing the comfort and refinement she has always desired while living with the Lintons. 5 years go by, and although she is now pregnant with Edgar's child, her heart still aches for Heathcliff. But then, without warning, Heathcliff returns. Like in the original story, he is now wealthy, confident, and completely transformed. Catherine is eager to see this new version of him, and in the process, she learns that he has bought Wuthering Heights and has moved in there. After Mr. Earnshaw's sudden death, he taunts Catherine by hinting that he plans to marry Edgar's sister, Isabella. Consumed by jealousy, Catherine resumes her relationship with Heathcliff, and the two begin to have a secret affair. Nellie tries to intervene with this, but Catherine refuses to listen. And desperate to protect Catherine's marriage and the future of her unborn child, Nellie eventually reveals to Edgar the truth. And devastated, he tries to keep Catherine away from Heathcliff. When she refuses to give him up, Edgar reminds her of her pregnancy, hoping that it will drive Heathcliff away. It does, and enraged by Catherine's rejection, Heathcliff marries Isabella purely out of spite. He uses the marriage to torment Catherine, sending her letters detailing the cruelty that he inflicts on Isabella. Nellie reads all of these letters and attempts to rescue her, but Isabella weirdly refuses to leave Heathcliff despite all of the abuse. We learn during this time that Nellie had been burning all of Heathcliff's letters to Cathy. He keeps sending them and getting Isabella to write them for him, but Nellie makes sure that Cathy doesn't receive any of them. This eventually brings us to the ending of the new adaptation, which is quite different to what book fans expected. With Catherine not receiving letters from Heathcliff and her marriage continuing to crumble, she sinks deeper into despair and shuts herself away in her room, refusing to eat and her health rapidly declining. Her pregnancy ends in miscarriage, something she mentions to Nellie, though Nellie dismisses it, assuming Catherine is exaggerating. But as we soon learn, Catherine's grief, starvation, and untreated miscarriage lead to her getting sepsis. When Nellie finally realizes how gravely ill Catherine is, she understands the weight of her mistake and immediately alerts Edgar. Before she leaves, Catherine also makes it clear to Nellie that she forgives her for keeping Heathcliff from her with the burning of the letters, and begs her to bring him back. Determined to make amends, Nellie rushes to find Heathcliff at Wuthering Heights and tells him that Catherine is dying. Nellie manages to free Isabella from her abusive marriage, and Heathcliff races towards Catherine on horseback, but arrives too late. Catherine's body succumbs to the infection, and Edgar, who had fallen asleep beside her, awakens to the horror of her death. Moments later, Heathcliff reaches her lifeless body, clinging to her and pleading for her spirit to return to haunt him if she must, but to never abandon him. And the film closes with an emotional return to their childhood, with glimpses of the moments that shaped their tragic lifelong love. When it comes to what makes this all different from the book, the film makes several major departures seen in the ending, the overall plot, and in how certain characters themselves are adapted. Starting with the story itself, Emerald Fennell's adaptation zeroes in on the relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine, ending the narrative with Catherine's death after she's already lost her unborn child. In the book, Catherine dies much earlier, and the story continues for the next generation with Heathcliff tormenting both Catherine and Edgar's daughter, as well as Hindley's son. The novel is also framed through the narration of Nellie, who becomes more of a supporting character in the movie. By closing the film on Heathcliff cradling Catherine's body and vowing eternal love, the adaptation leans into a tragic romantic angle and avoids the far darker aftermath that follows in the book. There's no next generation at all, which is definitely a bold choice, and one that will likely frustrate purists. The film also reimagines several characters. In the novel, Isabella is Edgar's young sister, while in the movie, she's his ward. She still falls for Heathcliff and marries him only to be abused as part of his revenge. However, the film makes her a far more eccentric character, giving Catherine unsettling gifts and indulging in odd hobbies like crafting paper dolls with her real hair. Her marriage to Heathcliff also becomes explicitly BDSM-coded, with Isabella willingly wearing a dog collar and crawling across the floors of Wuthering Heights. Also, while the book contains only a single kiss between Heathcliff and Cathy, Fennell heightens the eroticism, adding numerous sexual moments and a full-blown affair. The movie further has Heathcliff openly admit that he doesn't love Isabella and is marrying her purely out of vengeance. In the book, Isabella eventually has a son with him named Linton Heathcliff. Another major shift involves Hindley, Catherine's brother, whose cruelty towards Heathcliff in the book is a key factor in shaping Heathcliff's later brutality. The film largely transfers Hindley's abusive behavior to Catherine's father, who becomes the one to beat and degrade Heathcliff, although this element is less central than in the novel. And finally, there's the long-standing debate about Heathcliff's appearance. The book describes him as dark-skinned, which led some to argue that he may have been intended as a person of color. Though interpretations of this do vary, the issue has been discussed for decades. So overall, what were my thoughts on the 2026 adaptation of Wuthering Heights? Well, written and directed by Emerald Fennell, the film is a feverish, divisive, and undeniably bold reimagining of Emily Bronte's classic. One that seems determined to provoke as much as it aims to enthrall. Fennell's take is a loose interpretation, and the film announces that looseness from its opening moments with a stark, disorienting sequence that pairs erotic suggestion with the brutal image of a man being hanged, immediately signaling that this version will play by a lot of its own rules and embrace a kind of psychedelic rule-breaking energy. What follows is a film steeped in melodrama, sensuality, and a raw, emotional intensity that mirrors the primal forces at the heart of Bronte's novel. Set against the misty Yorkshire landscapes, the story leans into the friction of wealth, desire, cruelty, and obsession, capturing the novel's foundational themes, even as it reshapes them through Fennell's modern stylized lens. Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, whose casting initially sparked controversy, ultimately deliver performances that I thought were equally sizzling, indulgent, and deeply committed to the film's heightened emotional register. Their chemistry grounds the film's tempestuous romance in a physical and psychological volatility that feels both contemporary and mythic all at the same time. Fennell does push the melodrama to its limits, sometimes to great effect and sometimes to excess. I was fine with the film's sensual and stylized approach, as it's raw, dizzying, and unapologetically indulgent, embracing the Gothic romance's inherent extremity rather than softening it for modern sensibilities. However, I did think it became uneven in tone at times, with some moments and even performances occasionally veering towards pantomime. The film's provocations also flatten the class dynamics into caricature, portraying the poor as feral and the wealthy as clueless. Still, I get that Fennell's vision is strikingly singular, and her adaptation is not interested in reverence. It's interested in sensation, with all the heat, grime, lust, rage, and the messy destructive impulses that define Catherine and Heathcliff's bond. The film's atmosphere is thick with fog, sweat, and emotional violence, creating a kind of hot, filthy melodrama that I did find mostly intoxicating. It's a work that refuses to sit politely within the period drama tradition, instead tearing at the themes of the genre to expose something primal and unsettling beneath. So, in the end, Fennell's adaptation of Wuthering Heights doesn't play things safe, and it commits fully to its own fever dream logic. It feels like one part experiment, one part reinterpretation, and one part an answer to the themes of Bronte's brutal love story. For me, it was still mostly effective by its conclusion, mainly on a deeper emotional level. But that was my breakdown and analysis for the new Wuthering Heights movie. I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the film, the book differences, and the main details a bit better. And overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it. So don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos on upcoming film releases like Wuthering Heights, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications.